starts yet. We got word of this a few days ago. I don't anticipate a chronic shortage this year, from what I know, and I could be dead wrong. But we will have a plan within the next several weeks of rationing, peacetime rationing, individual discipline, those kind of things. American people haven't shown to date much interest in that. I just wonder how those disciplines can best be affected. It's never worked before, except World War II, even in Korea and Vietnam. And we'll have a plan, but I've got reservations, strong reservations, about in the short term and the long term of tampering with a basic supply and demand problem situation. Price usually is the disciplining factor. Maybe some sort of rationing will work. Never has worked before, except when you have a crisis that unites people in a very dedicated, motivated way. From what I see a lot of cars on the highways, travel around this state, wherever you go. Folks seem to be going where they want to go. You go to the airports, they are full. So anybody noticed any great disciplinary action that we've taken individually on the good life we're living in America? I hadn't seen that yet. And that's the kind of stuff you're talking about. And that's politically unwise to say that, but I think we'd better start saying it.
The number 6 firehouse on Highland Avenue, home for Rescue 92 when it isn't on an emergency run. But around 7:20 this morning, the firemen at the number 6 station discovered that Rescue 92 was missing. The firefighters notified the Montgomery police and calls were placed to surrounding towns. In the meantime, one of the firefighters' customized van was called into action until the truck turned up. Then, about 9 o'clock, a call from the Selma police. Rescue 92 had been found, and 34-year-old Irving Johnson, an ex-felon from Selma, had been arrested. But even more interesting was where the truck was located. Captain Jack Colson of the Montgomery Fire Department.
It seems that the suspect that they're holding now had pulled up to the Selma Police Department fuel pumps and was trying to get gas. They recognized him to be a known, I think the term they use is felon, and thought it strange that he was there in a fire department rescue vehicle from Montgomery.
Johnson reportedly had an unloaded sawed-off shotgun in his possession when he was arrested. Captain Colson says the rescue unit appeared to be in good shape and none of the equipment was missing. Michael Jones, WSFA TV News.
We have a recess, and I'm trying to go back into every county in the state during the year, and you have to take advantage of the recesses to do it. This week we've been into 14 counties and 22 cities. We want to listen to the people, hear their questions. We think we ought to know what's on their mind and ought to reflect their views in Washington.
United States Senator Robert Dole of Kansas is a veteran of politics. He boasts 18 years of experience, and he says America wants and needs a strong president.
Based on my experience and my service to the party, I think 10.5 years in the Senate and 8 years in the Congress gives me the experience that this country needs. We've had under the Carter leadership, frankly, a lack of experience. I don't suggest that President Carter is responsible for all the problems, but he hasn't solved many problems.
The ranking Republican on finance announced his candidacy less than a month ago and has begun campaigning on the weekends. This weekend, Dole stopped in Montgomery, Birmingham, and Dothan. One of the biggest problems facing the 53-year-old senator is the fact that he is a Republican.
We have to get over this image problem that we have as a party who doesn't care about people. That's not an accurate perception of the Republican Party, but we've got to demonstrate to the working men and women in this country that we're concerned about the taxes they pay, that we understand their desire to have some money left over after they paid their bills. We believe that there are areas we can reduce government, but we also understand there are some government responsibilities. But I believe in 76, many people voted their accent, and maybe 1980 they'll vote their philosophy.
On issues, he wants a balanced budget, some type of national health insurance, and guarantees that oil companies will either pay windfall profit taxes or put the money back into production here in the United States. Dole voted for the first Strategic Arms Limitation Treaty with the Russians, but wants to ensure the second treaty will be in the best interests of the country. The senator is predicting Democrat Ted Kennedy won't enter the race, and that if President Carter or Kennedy captures the Democratic nomination, either one can be defeated. The Alabama presidential primary will be the second held in the nation, and Dole says he'll be back before then to campaign extensively throughout the state. Paul Roth, WSFA TV News.
See, I was born during Reconstruction when education was hard to come by. So I just don't hardly have words to express my appreciation of what my friends and have done for me. So I have a hope that it won't be too long for we not only realize the truth of living, but the reason for us living longer.
Mark, take it easy now. Why do an article on how to build your own atomic bomb?
We wouldn't. It's not an article on how to build your own atomic bomb. It's deeply unfortunate that it's been reported as an article on how to build an atomic bomb. It's an article on secrecy in the nuclear weapons program, and it's an article that tells how a bomb works. Tells how a bomb works the way an article about the internal combustion engine might tell how a car works. But in no way is it an article that anyone could use to build a bomb.
Okay. Do you plan to publish plans on how to build a bomb?
Of course not. Our magazine is The Progressive, not Popular Mechanics. We don't print plans. We don't publish plans. We don't provide people with how to do it kits. Ours is a political magazine, and this is a political article. And the article says that for many years now, the government of the United States has invoked secrecy to keep people from knowing about the risks, the hazards, the dangers of nuclear weaponry and of nuclear energy. The government has said that people can't know about this stuff because it's secret, And while the government has been maintaining that to keep our own American citizens from having this information, the information has actually been available to thousands and thousands of people here and abroad, to scientists. It's been on open public library shelves. The only way in which it's a secret is that whenever anybody asks questions that the government would rather not answer, it says, hey, you can't ask that because it's a secret. That's what the article is about.
Okay.
It's been 26 years since Hank Williams passed away, but the memory of the man and his music lives on. An estimated 7,500 persons jammed the Hank Williams Memorial Park in the Mount Olive community of southern Alabama to pay tribute to the country singer with an all-day music festival. It was the largest crowd ever to attend the memorial celebration since the event began 6 years ago. There were hundreds of good old boys with their good old gals, and most of the crowd was too young to have seen Hank Williams in person or on national television, but his music remains timeless.
Big guitar, fill fruit jar, and be gay, oh. Son of a gun, we'll have big fun on the bayou. Tippy-do, rotten nose, the place is buzzing. Kinfolk come to see Yvonne by the dozen. Dressing style, go hog wild, me oh my oh. Son of a gun, we'll have big fun on the bayou.
It's a beautiful tribute to Hank. This is the 6th year that this memorial has been held. This is the 2nd year that I have been here. Hank was born in Mount Olive, right near here. This, of course, is the Mount Olive community. And I understand that originally they had the memorial down at the little Mount Olive church, where Hank used to sing, standing on the organ stool with my mother as she played for the church services.
You think more and more people hear about this year after year in this?
Yes, they do, because each year people passing through, going other places on vacations, particularly hear about this a day, is memorial tribute, and they come, they go back wherever they came from, and the next year they're back again. There's some people here today that are from St. Louis, Missouri. Last year they couldn't find Mount Olive, Alabama, because there are 4 in the state of Alabama. So on Monday morning, I was at the cemetery in Montgomery after the memorial, and they stopped, talked with me. I gave them a map how to get here, and this year they've driven from St. Louis to be here. And there are many people here today from Texas, as I am, and from many other states. Because Hank and I lived in Montgomery, as you know, for a long time, and Hank really belongs to Alabama. We lived in Georgiana and Greenville, Montgomery, Garland, and of course he was born here.
Your cheating heart will make you weep. You'll cry and cry and try to sleep, but sleep won't come the whole night through. Your cheating heart will tell on you.
Legends have a way of getting twisted and turned around, Paul. So I went to a lot of time and a lot of care to talk to people who knew the way it was. And as closely as I could, I wrote that into a play called An Evening with Hank Williams, and that's the show that I do on stage.
The president of the Hank Williams Memorial Association, Taft Skipper, says the performers donated their time for the event, and Butler and Conecuh County Sheriff's Departments provided security. Skipper, a first cousin of Williams, has no doubt next year's celebration will be bigger and better than the previous 6. Paul Roth, WSFA TV News, Mount Olive Community.
We expect to have these people hopefully by tomorrow.
The Board of Directors of the Montgomery Mental Health Authority hopes services will improve with money from the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. In order to meet the requirements of the grant, the board has expanded its membership from 15 to 24. This gives each county in the authority 6 members on the board. The new members are in the process of being appointed, with an effort being made to get board members under 25 years old. This is because many of the citizens in the 4-county area are themselves under 25. The board discussed its preparations for the grant with Authority Executive Director Dr. Stephen Pollard. Pollard, who was recently named Executive Director, says there are many areas in which the grant will help.
This grant was approved about a year and a half ago through the legislative process, but has as yet been unfunded. We're anticipating funding for the grant within the next week or two or month. And when we do receive that funding, of course, we'll be able to provide much more services for the residents.
What are some of these services, briefly?
As I mentioned, inpatient services. At the present time, we don't have inpatient services for the Mental Health Authority, although there are inpatient services in Montgomery. Improved services for children and emergency services, services for the aged, and a special minorities program.
Dr. Pollard says the first year of the grant would be over $500,000 and continue in varying amounts for 8 years. But as grants often go, final approval has still not come. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News.
Accreditation seemed to be the main concern of both the engineering and business schools at Auburn University. The engineering department, the first to make its plea to the Board of Trustees, said it faced serious questions in obtaining reaccreditation in the 1980s. The board was told that the engineering department's enrollment was surpassing the limit for which the facilities could accommodate. It also was told that the present facilities were very old and in some instances edged on safety violations. The group used charts and graphs to illustrate their need and pointed to a Dober and Associates report which called Auburn's engineering problem desperate and worsening. That report also said the department's accreditation was questioned. The business department pointed out that it was meeting a deadline on accrediting its graduate department or else facing the loss of its accreditation on its undergraduate work. The board also listened to discussion on proposed expansion of the Auburn-Opelika Airport owned by the university. The questions revolved around the possible relocation and acquisition of up to 14 families whose property would be a part of the expansion. Governor Fob James was scheduled to attend the meeting and was expected to have input on 2 specific subjects, but due to his absence, the new student activities building discussion and university role and scope discussion was not held. Speculation has run fairly high during the past several months that University President Dr. Harry Philpott intended to resign. That was prompted by a recent local newspaper article in which Philpott would neither confirm nor deny that report. Well, Philpott did not resign at today's meeting, nor was there any discussion of the matter brought up. So apparently, speculation to his resignation will continue for the time being. At the Auburn campus, Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
Members of the local Glass Bottle Blowers Association are striking because they work under what they say are intolerable conditions. Some workers say conditions became unbearable when Gary McDowell was hired as supervisor a year and a half ago.
Constant harassment, constant threatening, pushing. The man hadn't got any compassion for his workers. He doesn't know how to lead. All he knows how to push. Threatening to fire you, lay you off, reprimanding you, putting you on hard jobs whenever you talk back or something, you know.
Strikers say they work under constant intimidation and they won't go back to work until the supervisor is fired. One striker, Gary Grady, says several workers have had heart attacks and strokes in the hot end department where it gets up to 130 degrees in the summer. Grady says heart attacks never were a problem before McDowell was hired. The strike hasn't resulted in violence, but workers did warn a truck driver delivering materials to the plant not to return. Plant Superintendent Billy Thomas says he knows of no plans to fire anyone, including the supervisor, and he plans to get court orders to make the employees return to work. He also says he hadn't heard complaints against McDowell until yesterday, even though workers say they've complained to Thomas about McDowell for over a year. Thomas denies complaints of unbearable heat in the plant, as well as the accusations of harassment by McDowell. The workers say they just want to be treated like people, not animals, and they stress they are not striking for more money, but for their very health. Lisa Nielsen, WSFA TV News, reporting.
In before.
In the second day of the strike, the workers were served with a court order from federal judge Robert Varner. They said that they were going to stay out anyway. A letter from their union told them that the work stoppage was illegal and asked them to return to the plant. They still refuse. Some of the workers say that they are treated like slaves and that working conditions inside the Brockway plant are intolerable.
I'd work 5 or 6 hours without a break at all, away from the heat.
And I heard the man that they're talking about, Gary McDowell, tell a young lady that he'd prefer her to fall out than take a 10-minute heat break. And I heard this with my own ears, and he said the flow would catch you.
I've been training for the past 5 months as a foreman, but I just had come to the point where I just couldn't stand any more of the pressure he was having us to put on the people. My nerves were about shot, and he'd come in the office in the mornings or whenever, and he would start in, ride their asses, stay on them, ride them up. He said, this is what I want, and that's what you're going to do. And that's the way he was. He wanted us to get so much on him. He said, I want so much on him, I can fire him.
I've been here for 29 years, and I had a heat stroke on the 4 to midnight shift about 3 weeks ago, and I throwed up all over the place, and the foreman stood there and looked at me and laughed at me. I asked him, could I go home? He said he would try to find somebody to take my place.
Who was the foreman?
Robert H. Hudson, Jr.
You've been here 29 years?
29.
What is your feeling about this situation?
I think it's terrible. They're harassing us. They're treating us like slaves. There's nobody free around here when they're in that plant.
Well, there's nobody in Brockway that won't do their job if you're man enough to prove that you are considerate of their feelings too.
And I knew for a fact I had one write-up, and that was all, so I knew he'd be after me to get enough collected up on me. And I've seen his files. He's got a gang of it, and it's not being distributed evenly, which I feel like we could prove only if he'd let us in that file box and bring it out here. But these foremen, this letter shows two things. It shows the pressure that he's putting on the operators, plus it shows the pressure that he's putting on his foremen to put the pressure on the operators.
Brockway spokesman Michael Hoddett said that he would not confirm or deny any of the allegations made by workers here today. When the work stoppage will end is not known at this time. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News reporting.
I hope he realizes what a good potential we have here at Boise State, because a lot of the youth groups in Alabama, like youth legislature, are not taking that real seriously because we're a young group, and but Boise State, I've talked to many people, and we have so many great ideas as far as the Constitution is concerned. We're enacting on the Constitution, which is in legislature right now, and it's going to be something substantial, and I hope that what we pass through legislation here today may really become an effect on the real Constitution, or have some proportional effects to it,
And there's one thing I'd really like to do. Here, let me show you what it is. This is a miracle. I want to show you this. This is what happens when people, a group such as a party or a city, doesn't unite together and doesn't work together. We're worth about this much. But if we unite and work together as one, we will become as solid as a $50, and that's pretty solid.
The education budget, which was the center of attention in the House last Thursday, was not considered, at least not on the floor. Some members talked of meetings with the administration in an effort to further resolve the budget pay raise compromise. No definite agreement was reached in the anxious moments last Thursday when the governor's $20 million war on illiteracy was in question. Both measures are still very much up in the air. Governor James says his teacher pay raise bill, which was introduced Thursday in the compromise, would have gone in today. Still, many in the House are not happy with that plan to use money saved from proration to fund the teacher pay raise. Otherwise, the House got bogged down on a bill providing for election of members of the Birmingham Waterworks Board and adjourned until Thursday. The presence of state school teachers was just as pronounced in the Senate. When the members of the upper chamber arrived, they found numerous notes on their desk from teachers and support personnel urging them to approve a pay raise. In other action, the Senate passed an amended version of the $14.9 million supplemental appropriation bill, which will fund some state agencies for the rest of the fiscal year. Alabama school teachers were out in force at the Capitol today, and that had some lawmakers worried. The teachers wanted to know about their pay raise and about the education budget. And with school having just let out, they are prepared to stay the rest of the session to find out. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
About 63 until 70, and good to have you back with us, and Betty, and all. We're just glad to have you today. And so if you would come forward and raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Owen Harper.
I, Owen Harper.
Solemnly swear.
Solemnly swear.
To support the Constitution of the United States.
To support the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of Alabama.
And the Constitution of the State of Alabama.
So long as I can continue to a citizen thereof.
So long as I continue a citizen thereof.
And that I will faithfully and honestly.
And that I will faithfully and honestly.
Discharge the duties of the office upon which I am about to enter.
Discharge the duties of the office on which I'm about to enter.
To the best of my ability.
To the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations and welcome back, Owen.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Would you like to say something?
Oh, you can't stay long because it's such a busy day. How many are in? Now, what does the team consist of?
Three students. Okay, I understand. Somewhere I did, small interview on more stuff, right? 1,000 other jobs. Some of you with the white hanging on from Canadian University. The reason I suggested this activity is because of you and I understand pay rate.
Leaders of national businesses took turns conveying thoughts on the relationship between higher education and the application of that knowledge in the world of work. In a panel discussion, Fleming's company president Richard Harrison illustrated direct ties between successful businesses and educated graduates. Multimedia Incorporated Chairman Kelly Sisk said it should be emphasized that the technical education should be complemented by exposure to the liberal arts. And Liberty Corporation Vice Chairman Hayne Hipp spoke on the need for ethical and moral values on the part of big business. Hipp says the image is hard to obtain because of a distrust on the part of business that has been alive for some time. Keynote speaker at a luncheon was Chrysler Corporation executive John Day, who congealed the day's thoughts by listing three priorities.
To seek ideas and not ideology, to concentrate on real issues and not popular slogans. Second, to seek intelligent compromise between the goals of government and those of the business sector so that both can get on with their jobs. And third, to demand accountability from all our institutions in business, in government, and in education.
As one assessment of the convocation pointed out, look at who attended the meeting and participated in it. There were top executive officials of 5 major national corporations, a U.S. representative, and Alabama's governor, all reaffirming Huntington's stand that there is truly a growing partnership between business, industry, and higher education. On the campus of Huntington College, Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
To that decision?
It was a result of the revenues received in May.
Now, you only lowered it by 3%. What do you plan for the other 3?
Well, you can't tell until you know what monies have come in each month. So we'll look very closely at the revenues we receive each month and make a judgment on those facts.
Now, you'd wanted to use this money perhaps for a teacher pay raise. What's happened to that idea?
We are still working diligently on that problem, and the idea is still there, but we haven't come down on solid ground yet, and we don't want to be rushed into this. We want to wind up with a balanced budget, hopefully a budget that will gain some reserve next year, and so we're just going to keep looking at our alternates and watching the numbers and try to operate soundly. The one thing we don't want is proration next year. So that's what we're trying to look after.
Thank you, Governor. Have a nice.
The drugs have a combined street value of $1 million. The haul filled 5 duffel bags, Demerol, Quaaludes, morphine, and opium extract. In all, over 40,000 tablets, 5,000 capsules, and 14 pints of injectable fluids. In addition, there was 3.5 ounces of pharmaceutical cocaine seized. The bust occurred Wednesday, May 30th. A police car on routine patrol spotted a car on a fairly isolated road south of town near Narrow Lane and Siebels Road. 2 men, Gerald and Robert Vogel, were arrested around 9 a.m., and later that day a search warrant was obtained and the drugs were discovered in the trunk of the car. Lieutenant J.D. Foster says they have discovered where the drugs came from.
We have now determined that the drugs came from the Mississippi Drug Company in Jackson, Mississippi.
Gerald and Robert Vogel are free on a $50,000 bond each. Michael Jones, WSFA TV News.
Crush them. Bob Jimenez, NBC News, Leon, Nicaragua.
With nearly 2/3 of the DC-10 jetliners now inspected and back in service in the United States, there is more controversy this morning about whether those planes should be grounded for a good long time. One member of the National Transportation Safety Board, Philip Hogue, he used to fly jets for the Air Force, says the plane should not be in service, that he would not fly in it himself until he gets more answers to questions about the DC-10's safety. And the chief metallurgist of the safety board reported yesterday the engine mount bolt that was found after that DC-10 crash in Chicago last week was broken as a result of the accident, that it did not cause the fatal crash. Experts are now looking for another cause, re-inspecting the theory that a loss of hydraulic pressure forced the crash that took 274 lives. American farmers struggled this spring to get crops planted in fields soaked by rain and floodwaters, and now some of them are struggling against insects. Norma Quarles reports on that from Illinois.
90% of the nation's corn crop has now been planted, but farmers in the Midwest, especially here in central Illinois, are fighting an invasion of cutworms. The tiny cutworm lives for only about 17 days before becoming a moth, but each worm can kill 4 plants in that short time. This field is infested with thousands of them, cutting the stems off young corn plants and leaving wide gaps between plants which should be only inches apart. As much as 5 million acres nationwide may be affected. Roger Webb has an infested field. Even the plants he thought were healthy are now dying. The cutworm is cutting heavily into his profit margin.
I think we're going to reduce our yields by about 25 or 30% at this time.
In dollar figures, what would you say that would be?
I'd say on this farm probably around $12,000.
Many farmers have replanted, hoping new corn crops would produce better results. And other farmers have hired professionals to make emergency applications of insecticides. If farmers can manage to contain the cutworm damage, this year's U.S. corn crop should approach record levels. And since feed grain shortages usually mean higher beef prices, a good corn crop should be good news for the consumer. Norma Quarles, NBC News, Montgomery County, Illinois.
It's 10 minutes and a few seconds after the hour, and here's Bob Ryan with the weather.
Morning, Floyd. We've made it.
Not really.
Well, is it because it can go from 0 to 50 in 8.3 seconds? But then why are you driving a Rabbit?
Because it has more headroom than my Rolls Royce.
Is that such a big deal?
It is. If you're Will Chamberlain.
Volkswagen does it again.
Hello, everyone. Okay, what's happening with our weather, you're asking? Usually by this time of year, it's peace and tranquility. But the jet stream is still going through those wintertime type of convulsions. The result has been a series of storms moving from west to east and from south to north, with the rains continuing. Up to 20,000 miles we go. Here's the latest batch of cloudiness moving through the plains. It's raining this morning from Nashville to Memphis to Joplin, Missouri. Cold in the northern plains. Fargo's 50, Kansas City is 70. In between, it's raining. Honolulu, you're also 70. There's a little bit of patchy rain in the southern portion of Alaska, too, but the Pacific, for the most part, is clear. But off Baja to the south, the makings of what could be the first tropical depression in the Pacific. Along the coast, though, into Utah and Arizona, it's a nice sunny morning. A little bit on the chilly side, though. Into Big Piney, Wyoming, where it's 22 degrees. West Yellowstone, it's 24. The warm spot is Brownsville at 80 degrees. Look at the thunderstorms in the late satellite picture still going on around Dallas-Fort Worth. This is getting annoying, isn't it? Now the thunderstorms are moving into Louisiana and into western Mississippi around Jackson. There'll be thunderstorms over the next couple of hours. And isolated severe thunderstorms with that pattern continuing today, a wide area by this afternoon from western Illinois to West Texas through the Tennessee Valley in northern Alabama and Mississippi and Georgia, and one or two will pop up perhaps in northern New England, where it's been almost a week since there's been anything in the way of sunshine in northern Maine. More showers today. But down the coast to the Virginias, it'll be pleasant and sunny. Out to eastern Illinois, where it'll be sunny. The clouds will come in tonight as that warm surge up to the Mississippi Valley with the heavy rains and showers. More showers and thunderstorms, too, in western Colorado could cause a few more problems with flooding. Lamar had 5 inches of rain last evening. Look at that surge of cool air coming down into the Rockies. Not quite as cool as yesterday, but Cheyenne only 52 today. Boise will warm up to 72 degrees. Up the Mississippi Valley into the Ohio Valley, the warm spot. Akron, 81 degrees. And Montgomery, Alabama, 82 degrees. That is the weather. Here's Gene Shalit.
That's right, and I have a little friend here making his debut on television, as I say. Now a word from Ross from Purina Company, makers of Purina Pet Foods and all the other fine products from Checkerboard Square. How do you like it so far?
Good news! Good news! Good morning, ma'am. Have we got good news for you? It's brand new.
It's the great news you've been waiting for.
Good news! Good nutrition and good taste. Yummy tuna, chicken, and egg flavors.
Isn't that good?
Good news! Good news cat food from Purina.
The great news cats are waiting for.
Good news!
Good news.
What are you guys doing? The fish are biting already.
Eating wheat checks. Try some. They taste great.
Won't like them.
It's good for you, Charlie.
Oh, come on, guys, huh?
No, if you don't try them, we're going to sit here and we're going to eat them very slowly.
Okay. Hey, wheat checks are good. Lighter than I thought. Smaller. Really tasty.
Yeah, well, hurry up, Charlie. Remember, the fish are biting.
Hey, fellas, let me get my bunch in first. Fellas.
People who don't like Chex cereals have never tried Chex cereals.
The Wisconsin-based Progressive magazine cannot print an article about the making of an H-bomb because the courts have ruled it would endanger national security. Well, Phil Donahue this morning is in Chicago with Irwin Nell. He is the publisher of the Progressive, and Bruce Ennis of the American Civil Liberties Union, which is fighting to overthrow that court ruling. Here's Phil in Chicago.
You are editor of the Progressive magazine. You were about to go on the street with an article which actually detailed how to make a hydrogen bomb.
Not really. We were actually about to go on the street with an article about how a hydrogen bomb works. But it's not an article that anyone could build a bomb from. You know, it
well,
takes...
if I know how it works, I'm going to know how to make it.
No, if you know how an automobile works, can you make one?
Well, I could certainly, if I've got the money, make the calls, huh?
Well, it takes millions, billions of dollars.
But it sounds to me like you're quibbling. That isn't really the issue, is it?
No.
I assume that if you had the detailed instruction on how to build an H-bomb, you'd want to be able to publish that too.
No, because the Progressive is the Progressive, not Popular Mechanics. We don't give people kits on how to build
so it's an
things.
editorial decision you make then?
Oh, yes, of course.
All right, but you're muddying the water a bit, if you don't mind my making that point. I want to make sure I understand you. What is your point here? Okay. You had an article which detailed how a hydrogen bomb works.
Right.
You don't deny that a terrorist would be helped by the information in that magazine.
Oh, I do deny that. The terrorists, only a very large government can build a hydrogen bomb.
If Idi Amin had not been overthrown, wouldn't he welcome the information?
No. No way he could do anything with it.
Well, then, all right, then we better make sure we understand each other. And I want to make sure I understand what kind of purist position you're assuming here. Well, one of your defenses is that the information that you got in this article that you published was gathered by your reporter without any clandestine activity at all.
Correct. Absolutely.
And that's your defense.
Well, what we're saying is that when something is widely known to thousands of people around the world, to scientists, to governments, but is not known to the American people, and when that is something that needs to be known by the American people, in order to cope with this insane nuclear arms race, you know, we have 30,000 nuclear warheads.
All right.
If
And
it's
you're
something
upset
that
about
people
that.
need to know, then they're entitled to know.
Yeah, I don't understand how, in other words, you're against nuclear proliferation.
Oh, absolutely.
How does the publication of your article prevent that?
Well,
or minimize it?
You see, I'm not allowed to talk about the specifics in the article because of a court order. But if you're concerned about the dangers of nuclear materials, and they're very dangerous, you need to know how they work.
The judge who rendered the first decision in this case, this unprecedented decision which disallowed you from publication, said that the reason he was doing that is because our survival was an issue.
Well, you see, the judge was very sorely mistaken.
Well, is your defense that your article will not cause crazies to bomb New York, or is your defense that we already have the information, we got the information without any kind of secret or illegal effort, and that's why we ought to publish?
Both of those things are absolutely true.
The ACLU steps forward to defend this case because you believe what?
We believe that the principle of free speech, and particularly of a free press, is an absolutely essential principle for a democratic government. Information is power in this country,